Right, everybody, welcome back again to class. This is Oluwaseun here. Now, this is going to be a very quick lecture, all right, because what I want to show us in this video is basically how to change these, all right, to a variable instead of coding the value right here, so that as you build your pipeline, as you build your Docker file, and then with your Jenkins pipeline, the DockerCompose file should be able to pick up the image name automatically or dynamically without you having to code the value right here. And that is exactly what I want to show us in this video. Now, but before we go ahead in today's class, I quickly just want to share with us, for those of us who have asked about, the new cohort that is starting in January, I recently sent an email out to those who are registered. So by now you should have gotten an email. And if you have not gotten an email and you're still interested in an instructor-led DevOps DevSecOps training in 2025, I would advise that you go through the site. Now, I'm going to put the site on the screen. All right. So this is the webpage, seller.co/m/Alausa. Okay. And if you look at what you have here, all right, this shows you the courses that we're offering for 2025. So we are going to have the IT fundamentals, which is going to be instructor led. And the IT fundamental is for those who do not have any background in IT, but they are looking to transition into IT. Okay, and then we're also going to be having the DevSecOps training, which is for those who already have an experience with cloud, with DevOps, and they want to upskill, all right? They want to understand how security is implemented in a DevOps pipeline. And then the DevSecOps training is for you. And then the DevOps training is for those who already have maybe some knowledge of IT, here and there, but of course, they want to get into the mainstream DevOps and cloud, all right, roles, then you can go ahead and do the DevOps training, all right? So thank you so much. I just thought to share that with us, and then I'll head back right into the video. Thank you. All right. So now what we want to achieve is to basically not add code this value. We want DockerCompose to get that value dynamically. So how do we achieve that? Now already, I've done that already. So I'm going to just switch my branch again to another branch. So git switch, I'm going to say I'm switching to DockerCompose env. That's the name of the branch where I have, all right, that. Now, if you look at what I have here, I'm already using a variable. Okay, the $sign and then, the curly brace, and then I have this variable name called DC image. The question now is, how is DockerCompose going to get the value of this variable? Okay, because that variable, okay, the value is not defined inside of the environment file. Okay, so how do we define, all right, the value for the variable, and how will DockerCompose get the value to know that, oh, this is the image that I'm supposed to run with? Okay, now if you look at the Jenkins file, a little thing has changed. Now, the Docker image tag right here represents the image registry, the job name, and then the build number. Okay. Now, if you look at the stage here, we're not having, we don't have that long, build that we have. So all those things that we already usually have here, we have abstracted that, and then we've put that right here as a variable. So what we are doing now is to say docker build-t, and then we have these variable reference, and that variable is all right referenced, referencing this particular one. Okay, and then here for the push image, it's also the same thing. So we're referencing that variable. So we have abstracted all of that long, text and variable into just a single variable that our pipeline can actually reference. Now here comes the path where DockerCompose will be able to fetch, okay, the value for the image. Now here we have the SCP, which has been separated, but it's still the same thing. And then, we have the export keyword. All right, we have the export keyword. So which means this variable is going to be available in the pipeline, runtime environment. Okay, it's going to be available on our EC2 instance, right, as a variable that is available on the shell or in the runtime. Okay, so we're exporting that variable, and the variable we're exporting is this name, and then we are assigning that to what? To this particular value. Okay, so DockerCompose is going to look at the environment and then fetch that. There are different ways to define a variable, right? You can define your variable inside of a variable file. You can also export your variable, all right, on the terminal. For example, let me show you something. So if I come here and I say export, watch this. If I come here on my terminal and I say export DC, all right, underscore image, and I say equals. So let's say this is equal to DockerCompose. Let me just use a simple example. And I press enter. Right? Do you know that if I do echo $, and I say DC underscore image, and I press enter, It's going to give me what? DockerCompose. So which means if I'm running something on this terminal right now, and that thing has to reference the DC image, right? It is able to fetch the value of the DC image for me from the environment, right? And that is what export here is about. Which means the moment you push into your EC2 instance, that DC underscore image underscore name becomes available, and automatically it assumes, all right, this particular reference right here. And so DockerCompose is able to grab that and then use that to know the image that it wants to run exactly, right? And another thing that you can do if you're not sure is that you can also come here and just say echo to be sure that DockerCompose is actually getting the real value. All right, you can come here also and just say something like echo, right? And then you can say $DC, okay, underscore image, underscore name, right? You can do that, okay? And then you can come here to say // all right? I mean, just to say that the command continues, right? So the echo command is going to show you in your pipeline the value of DC image. So that's one way to also know if DockerCompose is actually getting the correct value. Okay, so echo $DC underscore image underscore name will give us the full, all right, name of that image tag. Okay, so that way we can know if DockerCompose is getting the real value or not. All right. So I'm going to clear my screen here. Now, since we already have this file, okay, so what we can do is we can go to Jenkins dashboard. Okay, we can create a new item and then we can just call that compose. Okay, and then pipeline, and then we say okay. All right, so another thing that we can also do is to grab the IP address of our Jenkins server, knowing that it has changed, and then go to GitHub. Okay, so we can go to GitHub here, and then we can go to the Docker project right here. That's the repository name. All right, and then we can go over here. I mean, this is the repo we're dealing with, right? The branch, rather, DockerCompose env. That's the branch we're dealing with. So I'm going to come here to settings. All right, and then I'm going to come to webhooks and I'm going to edit this webhook. All right, so I'm going to use my password. All right, so I'm going to edit that name so that, the pipeline can be triggered automatically. Okay, and then I'm going to update the webhook. Okay, so that's all that we need to do there. And then here, I will come here and then select this. All right, tell you that the pipeline script is from SCM. I'm going to select Git. All right, the repository URL, it's this. So I'm going to come right here and grab that, HTTPS, copy that, and put that here. And the branch we are dealing with this time around is DockerCompose env, right? Because I'm trying to just separate everything, okay? So that I can know that, oh, this one is the Groovy branch, this one is the DockerCompose env branch, so that there'll be no confusion, all right? And then I will say save. Okay, and then I can come back to my pipeline right here. And of course, I still have to change this address. Okay, so we need to change that to the new address of the Docker server. So copy that and then change that right here. So I think that's the only thing that we have to do. All right, every other thing remains the same. Okay, every other thing remains. Now, DockerCompose is going to get the value, all right, from here. So every other thing remains absolutely the same. Okay. So you can also put these inside of a curly brace, all right, just to be sure that it executes properly, okay? So that you don't end up with an error, okay? So now I'm just going to say git commit -am, and I will say DockerCompose, all right, image variable, all right? And then I'll say git push, all right? So let's see what happens, all right, with the pipeline. So I'm going to go back to Jenkins, all right, and I can see that the pipeline has been triggered automatically. So let's wait and see if we got it right, okay? So let's wait and see if everything will work as we expected. All right, so the pipeline is building. Of course, I can't see any image, any pipeline view. Let's refresh to just, all right, so I refresh my page and I can see that is going on right now. Okay, so the build image is completed. It's pushing the image now, all right, with the new, job name. So the job name this time around is compose, right? And so the image that DockerCompose is going to pull will have compose. All right, so we have an error. Good one. So let's go back and let's look at the console output. Let's go and find out why we have that error. All right. Okay, so there's an error. So what's the error saying? It was able to connect to EC2, but here it says DC image. It says no such property DC underscore image name for class Groovy binding. Okay, so that means there's a problem, all right, with this particular image name. Okay, the variable. It wasn't able to get the variable. So what do we do? All right. So what do you think we can actually do? All right, so now I think the problem is this. So I'm going to remove this part for now. All right, so let's remove that. Okay, so let's remove that. And then I'm going to come back here and say git commit. All right, and then let's say echo, all right, removed. Okay, let's just say that, and then let's do git push. It's good that we have this error. Okay. Because I mean, if you're doing DevOps and your pipeline is not always going to be clean, right? Like the last video we had, a clean pipeline, everything was fine. But it's good that we have this error so that we can actually understand how to interpret it and how to solve issues like this when we come across them in a work environment, right? So the push image. So let's take a look at the deploy compose now. Let's see if that echo was actually the issue. So it seems like it's working because this is 8 seconds. The other job failed at 767 milliseconds, and it shows that it completed, right? So let's click on this one and let's go and look at, the environment variable, all right? And let's see what happens. So here it's connected with the EC2 instance. All right, export DC image name. In fact, that even actually showed us the correct output. So you can see that Oluwaseun A/compose, which is the job name, and then the build number. It showed us the correct thing. And if you look at what we have here, it's actually stopped all the containers that were on the server before, and then it created a new one. All right, so that means DockerCompose was able to obtain the value dynamically. So how do we know that it was able to obtain it dynamically? So let's go and log into our Docker server. Let's connect to it so that we're sure that we're doing the correct thing, okay? So I'm going to open up my terminal here, and I'm going to go to downloads to get my key, all right? And then I'm going to come here, okay, and then say yes. And right here, I can do ls, and I can also say docker, all right, ps, okay? Now, if I look at it correctly, I can see that my Docker Compose, particularly my PHP application, started up with this image name. Can you see that? Compose:2. That's the image name that I started with. Is that all right? So that tells you that Docker Compose was able to get that name, all right, automatically, dynamically. So now in your next project, right, you don't have to add code, all right, your image name. So you can use variable, and then you can reference that variable inside of your pipeline, all right, configuration. Now, there's also another way to go about this, which is you can actually write this env file. Okay, you can write this env file to contain dynamically, all right, as you are building the image name is basically, all right, written inside of this environment variable, and then Docker Compose will also be able to fetch that value from this environment variable. That's another method, okay? But I think this one is okay. We understand what exactly we have done, and we're even been able to see that, that worked, all right? Okay, and then the echo command was not necessary because even from the pipeline output, we were able to also see that, the correct name was fetched. Is that okay? So that is what I thought to show us in today's video, all right? Now, in the next video, there's even something exciting that we're going to do, and that is integrating SonarQube, all right, with Jenkins Pipeline so that our code can be scanned and verified. If there's vulnerability, if everything is fine, all right, we should be able to check that before we even build an image from the application, all right? So that's the next thing we're going to look at. We're going to look at SonarQube and how we can integrate it with Jenkins Pipeline. And then as we go on, we're going to also look at Slack, integrating Slack to your pipeline for notification and things like that. So thank you so much for your time. I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.